Everybody, at this August gathering, I would like to introduce Canadian-born Senior Director Shernaz Pavri, who leads User Experience Design at Zorro. She has founded LinkedIn's design system team, having worked on redesign of LinkedIn. With over 15 years of experience, Shernaz has been a senior designer, art director at companies such as Apple, and has a number of community events. In her spare time, she is passionate about giving back to the society and the community at large. Please give a warm welcome to Shernaz Pavri.
Thanks for the lovely intro. And thank you all for attending the panel today. So I wanted to start off with just a small anecdote while all the panelists are coming up on stage. So thanks, these are our lovely boss ladies. Okay, so despite our community being so small in number and population, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that so many of us create such an impact, giving back to the community, and in business and entrepreneurship, and that's what we're going to focus on in the conversation today. Maybe next slide. It's on now. Yeah, it's on. Oh, thanks. So the focus of this conversation today will be covering off on a few key topics. We're going to start off, We've now gone through our intro, but we'll introduce these ladies so you can get to know them a little bit better. Then after that, we're going to be talking through building your personal brand, overcoming challenges and building resilience, defining success, and lastly, we'll open up for Q&A. Ultimately, we want this to be an experience that is intimate and interactive, so we want to make sure to engage with the audience as much as possible. Today we've specifically chosen panelists which are a representation of global diversity. So we'll all be announcing our locations in terms of where we're from. And we have both people within the corporate world as well as entrepreneurship. We have different age ranges and diverse backgrounds. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of our stories with you all today. Some intros.
Hi everyone, my name is Natashah Torki. I'm from San Diego, California, and I run a beauty studio, so all natural hair removal studios in San Diego with my family.
Hi everyone, I'm Pearl Jimmy Mistry. I'm from Bombay, India. I'm a part of the family business, so we're into adventure parks, resorts, real estate, and now I'm looking into a venture personally on my own, which is going to be interior and retail for furniture.
And I'm Shernaz Pavri, Senior Director of User Experience Design at Zorro, Product Design.
I'm Mayor Bharucha. I'm in strategic sourcing at Tesla from the Bay Area.
Hi, I'm Mayor Pavri. I'm from London, Ontario in Canada. It does exist. Thank you. And I'm an opera singer and actress.
So let's kick off with something inspirational and aspirational. Pearl, I know you and I have talked a little bit about really being intentional with what you want to commit to. Can you share a little bit about that?
So going back, I always wanted to be an architect for the longest time that I know. And eventually, when it came to the stage of actually pursuing it, I decided I'm not going to go ahead. The reason being, I took a step back and realized what is it that I actually wanted to do. And the intent was to be a part of and grow the family business. And architecture wasn't the route at that point in time. So while every decision I took, I was very careful about what is it that I want the end goal to be. And the only way of doing it was to decide what my priority at that stage was. So my priority when I landed up at high school and kind of going for my undergraduate, I took a decision to stay back in India and study so that I could work alongside in the business. I started at the age of 18 and I took on a different role every year within the organization. When it came to taking a decision on where I wanted to go and pursue my master's, the options were very simple and the decision was either between London Business School or Harvard. And the idea was that I did not just want to go abroad and kind of have a good time. I mean, that is definitely something that was on the agenda. But the idea was to really go focused on what is it that I want to learn, what is it that my weak points are, and what is it that I want to bring back and value add. And with that being said, I pursued my final degree and I got back to the company. Within the company as well, I realized that coming into an organization that is already established, the typical norm of, oh, she's the owner's daughter, and I mean, you know, that's how it's going to work here, wasn't something or the air that I came in with. I decided that I had to create my own legacy. I had to carve out my own niche. And one way of doing it was to show leadership, a little bit of compassion, and a lot of passion in what is it that I wanted to do. So when I came in from that perspective and that intent that every stage of and every step of the way, that is how I wanted to kind of go ahead and pursue what it is that I do.
I love how you articulated that mindset and intent before you engaged in anything. So with education, there's also this aspect of continued learning. And Natashah has just graduated from her MBA. Put your hands together. Natashah, can you highlight some key takeaway from your experience?
Absolutely. So when you get into graduate school, you're automatically humbled because you're around a ton of people that are smarter than you. But that is actually an amazing thing because it gave me a chance to learn so much from so many different people who are from these different companies, different verticals, just different industries. And you don't realize how much you can take back into your own business, regardless of whether it is, what I do, beauty and wellness, or whether it is just a completely different industry. You can really make things match up, and you can really learn so much from different people, which is basically what I did the whole time I was there. I was like a sponge. I was literally just absorbing so much, learning things from so many different people. And then, of course, along comes with that is a lot of networking. A very, very important part of networking is not just getting to know people that work in really great companies. Just because someone works at Apple or Google or is a CEO of a company is not a reason for why you should get to know them. A really, really important reason is because you want to aspire to be like them, is because you want to learn from them, is because they are an amazing person that you can really look up to. And by growing that relationship and sometimes creating, a mentorship or something like that, or even just a friendship, that's the way that you network and really keep in touch with them. It's not only when you just need something. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I love how you highlighted the aspect of creating this connection that's more genuine and authentic. So, Mayor, I know that oftentimes our careers require us to connect and engage with like-minded people. Your career is a little bit more unique in that you're very self-driven. Can you discuss how you connect with colleagues in the career world?
Yeah, so in our day and age with things like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, you can be your own boss, which is incredible because you can create free content for anybody, for people all around the world, and it's just you yourself is the only person that's holding you back from sharing your work. And so when you get into things like hashtagging and You know, like Instagram is a whole formula in itself, and it's like there's so much to learn about it as well. But it's such a great tool to connect with people all over the world. You might think that you're passionate about something that nobody else in your friend group is passionate about, but then when you go to hashtag it, it's like, wow, you have this whole community of people that are passionate about the same things that you are. So it's a really great tool that we didn't have like 25 years ago, and it's free. I would say, like, if you're passionate about something and you want to put it out there, because the only person that's stopping you is yourself. And you can really connect with people all around the world. So it's a really, really great tool to have.
Thanks. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of negotiating and advocating for yourself. I think it's very important for us as women to be able to speak up and have a voice, especially in the work environment, and oftentimes that can be challenging. Just out of curiosity, let's have a show of hands. How many of you guys have had to negotiate before? Okay. How many of you guys have found it easy to do? Just a few hands. Okay. And how many of you guys have found it challenging? I know I'm there. Nice. Okay. So Mare, why don't we share a story of how we've had to negotiate for a contract for yourself? As an example.
Yeah, definitely. So I do have agents that take care of most of my work, but in terms of some contracts that I have to negotiate myself, I want to focus on all the artistic aspects of it. I just want to go to a gig and perform or whatnot. I don't want to have to take care of the contracts, but luckily I have a sister, Cher, who is amazing at negotiating contracts for me, and oftentimes I'm petrified of asking for X amount of money, and I'll shoot that number to my sister and it'd be like, hey, what do you think of this? And she'll always come back at me and say, no, you should ask for double that. And I know I'm very lucky, but I feel like you probably have somebody that's super close to you that you can actually talk to about negotiating contracts. You don't have to do this all yourself. But Cher, what are some of the things that go into looking at my contracts? What do you consider when you're writing them for me?
Off on answering that question, I just want to share with the room that statistically men are more confident in negotiating and asking for more than women are typically. So I understand it's not something that comes to us naturally. It's something that is a little bit, sort of against our grain, in that you don't want to necessarily speak up or don't necessarily see your own value or worth. I think the biggest thing that I've tried to do especially with helping Mare out in the past, is really communicating the value of what you bring to the table. And so that might mean, listing out a series of accomplishments, or how many shows or theater productions or, movies or modeling engagements she's been in, or performances. So it's important to list out all of your accolades and communicate your value. I don't necessarily think that should be seen as a form of bragging, but it's also like helping the other person create a sense of empathy with you, in terms of how much of a mutual benefit the relationship would be, if you choose to engage together. And I think it's also important to advocate and ask for what you want, because if you go into a work engagement and you didn't take that chance, you didn't take that risk of asking for what you actually wanted, you end up in a situation where you're going into it with a regret. What's the most that they can say? At the most, they'll be like, no. Ideally, you want to make sure that you're meeting halfway. I think that it's also another thing to keep in mind is just really about being mindful about your choice of words specifically. So, asking questions like, how can we work together? How can we find a middle ground? What would it take? What is the reason I'm not getting this? Can you help me understand? So I think that it's really important to choose that right verbiage when it comes to your style of communication, and then you find that middle ground. And lastly, just being confident in your own ability.
Yeah, like the famous Drake line, know yourself, know your worth.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Be the North.
She had to put that plug in. Okay, so Mare, you're in an industry where you've had to develop thick skin, either continually having to face rejection, or there's pressure to conform. I feel like we're getting into the meat of the discussion now, where people are going to start becoming a little bit more vulnerable, and you're going to hear some stories from the panelists. So I'm really looking forward to hearing, how you've dealt with that, and if you can share a personal example.
Yeah, so I deal with rejection every single day. Being an actor, you literally get rejected all the time, and you have to kind of develop a thick skin, and you got to bounce back. Like for me, rejection is an invitation to keep going. It's a good thing. You can, like everything that I've ever been rejected from, I've ended up doing bigger and better things because of that. And you might not see that right now, but you might see that 5 years from now or 10 years from now. You just got to trust the process, follow your bliss. In terms of a rejection story that sticks out in my mind, I wear my Southern custody every single day, and it's something that's important to me personally. And I'm telling this to you guys because as fellow Zorros, I'm sure you guys can relate. When I was about 14 or 15 years old, I knew that I wanted to start doing ad campaigns. And I wasn't talking like Sports Illustrated or whatever. I wanted to do corporate ad work like Air Canada, TD, whatever it is. So I was talking to a photographer, and I was really young, and I explained to him my Southern custody situation as best as I could. He wasn't Zorro, but I did my best. And he's just flat out told me, no, you're never going to do any sort of modeling if you're not going to be willing to take that off. And I was like, okay, watch me. So then the very next year, the same thing that he rejected me from, I was actually on the cover of a nationwide magazine that he said I would never be on. But it just goes to show that if you stick with your values and if you stick with whatever you believe in, and that's personal to you, I'm not saying like wear your Southern custody every day, do you? Like this was just something that was personal and important to me. And now when I do film and television and I go into wardrobe, it's an interesting conversation. They're like, hey, what is that? What are you wearing underneath your clothes? And every single time they've worked around it. They've worked around to accommodate whatever character I'm playing. They constantly make it a point to be accepting of it, and they're more curious than anything, and they want to learn about it. So yeah, that was one of my rejection stories. Just stick with whatever is comfortable for you, and you don't ever have to compromise your personal values for anything.
Fun fact, I know that Adam Sandler chose one of your wardrobe pieces before. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about owning your own career growth. So, Mayor, I know that you've worked in environments where you've had to be the only female in a male-dominated industry. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you had to overcome and how you worked through those personally?
Yeah, so it's been a process for sure, going through and exploring the engineering world. It started in high school when one of my math teachers recommended that I join robotics club, and that sounded really cool to me, but I showed up to the first day of practice, and it was 75 men and then me, which was pretty intimidating.
Wow.
And I immediately found they were all very nice, very polite, but they were much more interested in getting to know me socially, and every time I tried to speak up about the project we were working on or anything technical, it seemed like they just weren't as interested really in what I had to say. And that made me feel very dejected, but my parents really encouraged me to continue to explore engineering because it was something that I was really passionate about. So I then went to college where I had a very different experience because freshman year of engineering, pretty much everyone was in the same spot, the same starting spot. No one really had a leg up on anyone else. So whether you were a man or a woman, you started at the same spot. And that encouraged me through the 4 years. I met a lot of really awesome, supportive people, and we kind of got through it together. Decided to pursue engineering after college as well, where I was at Unilever, and they sent me down to Arkansas to work in a manufacturing plant. But here I was in the South in Arkansas in a manufacturing plant, surrounded by, again, a lot of men who had been mechanics for the equipment on the plant floor for like decades and knew this equipment inside and out. But it was in my first week where there was a machine equipment breakdown, and this was like a big bottle labeling machine. It took up like the size of probably most of our bedrooms, and they were trying to figure out why it had broken down. So I observed for some time and then asked, hey, does anyone have a manual for this? Like, are there instructions somewhere on how to use it? And they just kind of snickered at me and didn't take that question very seriously, but said, yeah, there's a manual, it's back in the mechanics lab. So I went back to the mechanics lab, pulled out this like 10,000 page binder and lugged it out onto the plant floor and started just paging through it in like a corner by myself. And then they said, hey, we're gonna go to lunch, you can do whatever you want out here. And I found the section on the specific part of the equipment that we were having issue with and just started tinkering around and ended up fixing it. And when they came back onto the floor and saw that I had fixed it, their entire demeanor towards me had completely shifted. And it was almost like I'd started out there with a reputation of almost zero and no rapport with them, and I had to build my way up to having full rapport and trust with the rest of the team. And I had to do that by showing them data and evidence and proof that I was there to try to be as helpful as I could. So that was kind of an aha moment for me, and I think through my career after that, I've worked really hard on trying to come up with hypotheses, but also trying to identify what data I need to be collecting in order to support those hypotheses. And once you start presenting that data to your colleagues, it really doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you're all kind of on the same playing field and playing with the same tools in a sense. But all of that wouldn't have been possible without like my parents, who every time I felt like quitting, they were very encouraging. So I think finding a support system is exceptionally important, I think, for all of us, but also identifying how, not necessarily what you're saying, but working and developing on how you say it is also really important as well.
I love.
Hello? And just to add to that, I just think it's so great that the Zoroastrian Congress has a panel like this. Everybody in this room is their own boss woman, and I just feel like it's just so great to be connected with everybody in here, and it's really great to have things like this so that we can all come together and work as a unit, and we're all a team, and you know, we can have discussions throughout the whole week about this kind of stuff. You can come and talk to any one of us about anything, and it's really great to be connected.
I love that you proved your worth and really created value for your own work environment, and then also identified who would advocate for you as well. Natashah, I know that you've also dealt with some similar challenges in terms of being taken seriously, especially being in the beauty industry. So maybe you can share a little bit about that.
I think it's really important to say to every single person in this room, as individuals, we cannot put our leadership on anyone else. We have to put leadership on ourselves, and it's our responsibility, as these women have proven here, that we can't expect anyone else to, you know, advocate for us, to stand up for us, to do the right thing, but it's up to us to always make sure that we're advocating for ourselves, and we're always, you know, putting leadership into our own hands, because no one else is going to be in charge of our future the way that we are, of our own. So I think that's extremely important. And yes, in terms of like owning a beauty business, being in beauty and wellness, a lot of times, and being someone who's young, not taken seriously at all, also being someone who's a woman, it was very intimidating walking into you know, MBA school, and having older people. I was one of the youngest people in my class, and having older people be there, part of huge companies and huge industries, I think it definitely gave me a little bit of a scare to begin with, but then I realized that I have a lot of input, I have a lot of advice, I have a lot of different perspective that I can add, and I realized that it's really important, and people wanted to hear what I had to say. So it's when you take leadership into your own hands and you know your self-worth, I think that makes all the difference.
Definitely. So Mayor, oftentimes you empower others by giving back to the community, whether it's hosting charity concerts or doing some sort of philanthropic effort, whether it's like raising money for schools, those types of things. Can you share with us some of the ways that you have had impact on other people's lives, or why you've done those types of things?
I think you would all agree that because we're all Zoroastrians, it's kind of instilled in us. It's like in our DNA to give back. Like I grew up watching my parents be so generous, my friends of other Zoros be so generous, and I just think it is extremely important to give back to the community in whatever capacity that you can. And so personally for me, I like to choose charities that I'm really passionate about and do whatever I can to help out with those charities. In terms of organizing charity concerts, and in Toronto I volunteer every week at a hospice, so I sing for people who have 3 months or less to live, and it's just 1 hour a week out of my time that I give back. And even if you don't feel like, oh, you have a special skill like singing or music or whatever, you have your time and you have something that you're good at. And so I would encourage everybody to give time or whatever it is that you can to the community, and that's anything, right, Natashah?
Yes, so what Mare was saying is you don't need to have a special talent. Of course, Mare is gifted and she has a beautiful voice, so she's able to share that with the world, but you don't need to have a beautiful voice, and you don't need to have a special hobby or play the piano or do anything like that. On my spare time, I go 1 hour a week, the same as Mare, and I tutor refugee children. And so I'm not a teacher and I'm not, an English whiz or a math whiz, but I just give my time, and that is really important to them because these children don't get enough time from people that want to spend just an hour on them, and that makes all the difference. So it's really, really important to just know that it's not making a big impact. Not that it's not making a big impact. It doesn't mean that you need to help a ton of people or do something really big. Helping one person and helping one person once a week for, how many ever months or weeks you can give to them, that is still making an impact, and it can change that one person's life. So I think it's really, really important to know that just going out of your way to help somebody else is even still helping.
I love it. Warms my heart.
I think what happens is most of us are always waiting for that right moment when we are going to turn and kind of give back to the community. So everybody is so engrossed with everything they do in their daily life that it feels like, okay, maybe in a couple of months, maybe in a couple of days, maybe in a couple of weeks is when I'll do something. I've spoken to a lot of people that find it hard to decide what it is that they can do to kind of give back to the community. Like they said, when you don't have a talent or you feel like, your impact is too small to really do any good. I think the idea is just to go out there, like they said, give your time and start. I think the whole effort is just to start. So start with something. I thought I'll finish studying, I'll start working, I'll settle down a bit in work, but that moment doesn't really come. So I was a little bit lucky where I had people from WZCC, approach me thanks to the conference, and then I realized that it's with the small bits that you actually start engaging and getting involved with the community. We have an organization which is a family NGO called Parsi Resource Group that looks into helping the Morbaids as well as kind of including the youth in. And my biggest challenge is that I've grown up in a colony where the Parsis are very tightly knit, they're very supportive of each other, they're very enterprising people in a way as well. But what I see is the minute there's no gumbar or there's no food, drinks and dance, nobody wants to come up, nobody wants to show up. I think one of the things that you can do to actually give your bit is to show up kind of to listen to people, show up to support people, and show up to do your bit for the community. I think what everybody's done by just being here in LA, attending this is a big deal completely. I was looking forward to seeing more people from my colony do that, which is very disheartening because it's not. The other Parsi colony has the largest number of Parsis in a particular area, and they're not here. We're not the largest majority, we're not the ones representing ourselves and the community here. So I really think that even in a smaller manner, if people really get together and you don't know what to do, there are so many committees and so many people out there within the community doing fantastic work, and just kind of being active and engaging with just one organization like WZCC, and now coming to the Congress and seeing what everybody is doing, whether it's in Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand. I know I'm a lot more excited, a lot more motivated, and I hope that everyone's going to take back that enthusiasm home and kind of continue spreading the good word.
Yeah. I love how you captured that there's never an ideal moment to take that first step. Natashah, I know that you have also been mindful of having sustainability in mind and the environment. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there is a ton of waste in the beauty industry. Obviously, it's more in makeup and things like that, but it's really important that, again, it's your small part makes a difference. So we always try to be very mindful and try to be sustainable in the products that we use, whether it becomes, things like as simple as what wax we use, what we're throwing in the trash. We use mascara wands for when we do clients with brows, which we go through a ton a day. We probably go through like 120 mascara wands a day, and that seems like it's a little bit silly, but it goes in the trash, and it's something that's wasteful. So we donate those to this wildlife organization, and they can, clean the fur from specific animals. And so it's little things like that where if you can get more use out of little things, it's little impacts, it's little things that you can do all add up together to become big things. So don't feel like it needs to be something huge. It doesn't need to be a big impact. And just like Pearl said, there's never a right day to start. Just start. Just get out there. Just do it. And whether that means not drinking plastic water bottles. I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole environmental aspect of it. We already did that. But it's little things like that that can really help make a difference. And we think it's just one straw, or it's just one water bottle, or it's just, I can only do 1 hour every 3 weeks. Oh, it's not a big deal. But it ends up being a big deal over time and over multiple people.
Natashah, you've also taken some risks and pushed boundaries, just having started your own business. Can you share with us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so my business was not, I don't want to say my business, it's my family business, and so it was started by my mom and my aunt originally, so it's not my business, but we do it together and we do it collectively as a group, and we work really well together. And the reason we work well together is because we have our specific skills that we're all really good at. So, of course, my mom and my aunt are older, and they are really great at communicating with clients and just being out there and getting to know people. I am a millennial, so I know how to do things like social media. I know what people want to see. I know what services they want. I know, I'm very particular about the customer experience, and so these details from A to Z, and maybe things that seem like they're really small, they end up being really, really big. Again, I guess this is a theme for today, but it does. All these small little parts of the client experience is really important to me. It's the details that matter. My mom and my aunt don't necessarily understand it, but they know that it's important, so they let me do my aspect of it, and that's how we've been able to grow. And while we don't necessarily have 50 locations, we are a small business, but we've been able to have growth over the years, and the reason is because we've added on complementary services, add-ons, things that make people want to increase their ticket price, and that has helped us grow over the years. So it's not necessarily that you need to have 1 million locations or be a big company, which it's great if you can, and it's great if it happens, but know that change and growth can happen even within your current space. So I think that's really important to know.
Thanks. And Pearl, you've had to help scale an empire and grow multiple businesses. So can you talk a little bit about what it means to you specifically to be a leader?
So I've grown up all my life under the shadow of a man who's always been extremely looked up to, whether it's in the business world, whether it's in the design fraternity, whether it's in the Parsi community, and having that constant understanding of whether I have people who want to talk to me because of me, or do I have people who want to talk to me because of my father. And it's happened at the Congress, it's happened to me growing up, so that inherent need to prove myself has always come in. And that's when somebody, just gave me a little bit of a push, like, relax, why do you have this martyr complex? And I was like, what do you mean? And it comes down to what Cyrus said this morning. There is absolutely no need to feel that you're going to achieve that success if you're going to go through the grind. I had to come to terms that some of us here have got a leap start, but what's going to be the sad bit is if I don't grab my opportunity. So instead of, kind of putting it in my head that, okay, I'm on a bit of a pedestal versus people around me, do I, show off about it? Do I get cocky about it? Or do I actually do something worthwhile to make sure that everyone that's connected to me or around me also gets a chance to uplift itself? So whether or not it's so as a company, we do not believe in just recruiting people because of the experience they come with in that role. We encourage entrepreneurship and enterprising people even within a corporate world. And just as philanthropy is in the Parsi blood, so is the entrepreneurial instinct. And I really hope that even those that are doing great jobs out there in the world really take the initiative to grow within their organization and to kind of add value to that. So that's where I think the leadership role kind of comes back in, where even in the organization, it's not about just seeing what's the right path, but kind of constantly developing, seeing what's new, bringing it back in. I love to travel. I love to visit places. I love to see what's globally trending, not just from a perspective of enjoying it, but actually seeing what is it that I can take away from there, kind of come back and share it with everybody back home, implement it within the organization. Everybody talks about the digital age and digitalization. I think as Parsis and in the community space, the only thing that we've done is, kind of made Instagram handles. What else are we doing to really connect all the communities out there? Within the organization, what we did in Parsi Resource Group was, we've started this thing called Book a Prayer. So everybody spoke about how in certain cases, they're not fortunate enough to be close to an Agyari. And I think Dad kind of heard that story. And what we did is we set up a Dadgah in Bombay, even though we're filled with Agyaris, for the sole purpose of digitizing the community and taking it one step further. So now, on birthdays, on anniversaries, on Roj birthdays, you can actually log into the Parsi Resource Group website and book a prayer for a dear one. So you sitting back home from wherever you are can actually live stream that jashan, you can live stream that prayer, and you can kind of, pass it on. So even though we understand that we're very fortunate in Bombay, there was absolutely no reason for us to do something like this. I have an Agyari down the road, I have an Agyari 15 minutes from me, I have an Agyari 30 minutes from me. Why would I want to create yet another Dadgah? Why would I want to create yet another place of worship? For the idea being that people out there don't have the opportunity, so I think just reach out and kind of get them back in. And more than anything, just get the youth engaged. And that's personally a problem we have. So I hope over the years, whether a leader or not, I managed to kind of inspire people to help me in turn to, kind of get more Parsi youth leaders out there and take charge.
I love the passion that just exudes out of you.
So I think, at least myself, being in corporate America, it seems a little challenging sometimes to navigate through some of the more political dynamics, but Shernaz, I think, has done a really great job of rising up through a series of different positions. Shernaz, what are some tips that you would give to people just entering into the corporate world?
First of all, I'm super humbled that you would consider that, so thank you. I don't necessarily think that there's one secret formula that would just work generically for anyone. I think that the road itself has had its ups and downs, its own challenges. There's never this perfect happy path that leads you to whatever destination you're currently at. So I think the biggest thing that has helped me, though, is really being intentful about what your goal is. And so if you come in with a particular goal, and this is actually something that one of my first managers actually asked me to think about, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where would you like to be career-wise? And in my head at that time, I was like, oh, I want to be a creative director. This is this would be a dream come true. And so, just having that milestone or having that goal and setting that intention really helps to drive you and set you on the right path in terms of understanding what are those baby steps that you need to take yourself to get there. I think that during that journey, there's a huge learning curve, and it's important to maintain that learner's mindset and identify areas that you want to develop both personally and professionally. And so oftentimes it's important just to look back. I even ask my own employees to reflect back on an annual basis, on a quarterly basis even. Where do you see yourself 18 months to 2 years out? What skills would you like to develop? Where do you see your own personal shortcomings? What are some of the challenges that you face? And what are areas that you want to grow in? And I think that it's important to ask yourself those questions and self-reflect. But once you get to that destination or that journey, so many more doors open up, and your goals are constantly changing. And so there's no real perfect happy path, but I know I've also, advocating for things like promotions. It's important to advocate for yourself, to have to prove yourself, to be within that position and worthy of that ahead of time. And then there's also, just even switching jobs and putting yourself in environments that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but having those environments be things that you're learning and growing from other people that are, much smarter than you, that you can aspire to, absorb any sort of knowledge from. And I think that, that's taken me a long way.
That's awesome.
Cool. So I think that's it for the girls up here. If we can just give them a hand, and I'd love to just open up for questions. Woo, thank you. Okay, so I'd love to hear from the audience. If you guys have any questions, I know we have a few minutes remaining. Anyone have any questions?
Hi there. You guys really are an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question was, not for nobody in specific, being a manager, how do you sort of get the task at hand done without being sort of like a slave driver is my question.
Okay, so I can start off, and maybe if you guys can chime in. So I think with the conversation that we were having earlier around setting goals, I think it's important to really my style is very direct. Like, you'll know if I like something, if I don't like something. So I don't really sugarcoat, but I also believe in creating an environment of trust and transparency. And so I think as long as you're very clear in terms of what your expectations are of the employee, and just being open and honest and having that conversation. I think it's important to create an environment of trust where you've attained that, and it's proving yourself on both sides, and it builds over time. It's not something that just happens overnight.
So I'd like to add to that as well. What happens is, before assigning someone a task, I always had this habit of wanting to do it myself, so I do it correctly the first time. And then the frustrations of having somebody do that and then do it wrong, and then, like she said, if you're not very clear and you're not articulating what you expect out of it, it's going to be difficult. That being said, what I always do is, the minute a task is wrong, I hold back, and the first thing is that, what is going wrong? What went wrong? Why haven't you been able to do it? And has the person on the other end understood that they've done it incorrectly? So I think that's one way to kind of really get it going with, where you just sit back and ask what the question is, that have you been stuck in a particular place, or is there something that I can do to help you out? And oftentimes the main reason tasks aren't done is because of confusion and not even lack of time. So people spend more time really just understanding what the problem is at hand, and then actually, getting to do it down. And more than being a taskmaster, I think you just need to kind of have a very transparent communication. So,
good question.
Hi, ladies. I think this was kind of touched upon already, but for just wondering, any advice for anyone that sometimes feels intimidated in their workforce by anybody higher up, what advice you would have for that? I'm studying to get my master's in anatomy, and I plan to become a professor teaching medical students, so I'm oftentimes dealing with a lot of professors who have years of research experience, and they kind of think that I should know everything. So, yeah, what do you guys?
I think for this, speaking with data is really important, and trusting your intuitions and trusting your opinions, but finding data to back that up. And I think it's very easy to get emotional, especially about something you're passionate about, but just make sure you have the data prepared to back up whatever you're saying.
I also think that's something really important to note, is that you're a student for a reason, and you're not the professor yet. And so I think it's okay to just say, it's okay to say, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know, but then follow up with, how can I understand this better? Or how can I get to where you want me to be. And then have that be more of an open conversation more than anything else, because for me personally, I rather have someone come and collaborate with me to get something done and have them understand it, so we make sure that we don't fall in that same pit the next time. So just remember, like, you're a student and we're all learning, like literally forever. We're all learning, so it never ends, and so don't feel like you need to know it all.
Thank you.
I also want to add one last thing to that. I just want to thank you for having the courage to share that with us specifically, and I also think that it's important to remember that we're all the people that you're intimidated about. You can easily find a mentor or an ally or an advocate within that same circle, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, your director. Other people within the that room that you feel comfortable with, and it's okay to be transparent about it, but know that at the end of the day they're also human, and just because you're higher up doesn't make anyone more or less of a person than you are.
So we've talked a lot about kind of starting from ground zero and then building your way up and advocating for yourself. Can you talk about if there's been any challenges balancing your professional growth with time in your personal life and how you've faced those challenges?
So I think it comes back to the fact that what is your priority? Really, at that stage, everyone needs to have a work-life balance. I've got 2 younger siblings who perpetually go like, oh, you're boring, and why aren't you having fun? And I have fun, I travel, I go out drinking, I come home at odd hours in the morning. but have I got my goal for the week done? Do I know what my priority is? Have I catered to a client? Am I doing it at the cost of, like, ignoring an exam? So at that point, and this is something that I learned at university, and I went there, and like Natashah said, you are not the smartest person in the room. So firstly, just being like, okay, and then you had these people that you meet, and they're like, yeah, we submitted this in and we've sent that done, and they're out there, they're going exercising, they're going hiking, they're gymming, they're partying, they're like on the top of everything. So the fact is that there's so many people out there who do it and you can't. And I also personally believe in having the right kind of people around you. See, our families are great, and we've spoken about how Zoroastrians are inherently lucky to have very supportive, liberal, understanding, forward-thinking families. But it also comes down to your friends. Do you have the right set of friends that are motivating you in that space? Do you have a friend that goes like, buddy, like, screw it, like, let's just get out,
Or for you, though, it's extra challenging, though, because you work in the same environment as your family, and then you come home and you don't turn off. So how do you do that?
So yeah, I keep telling everyone I live in the same house as my boss. So that's that's definitely got to be a challenge. But if you kind of streamline things correctly and kind of just find how you're going to give each stage in life a priority. There's a stage where you have to perform. There's a stage where you have to learn. And I think that learning and performing has to constantly keep, switching around, because otherwise you're going to become absolutely irrelevant. And like Cyrus also mentioned in the talk earlier, which I completely resonated with, every little thing is very important. Your business idea most times does not come sitting in your chair. Only when you get out there, talk to people, discuss it, brainstorm, the most unexpected ideas really hit you. And that's why it's super important, even though it's hard. But I think don't look at it as a long-term thing. Take it as a week-on-week. So make sure you do justice to everything you take on. And that's the only way to really go with it.
Prioritize. Thank you.
Excellent insights today, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question here. Have you guys thought about starting any mentoring workshops or anything along those lines, or are you guys doing that?
I believe there was someone before we started, and I don't know his name. I apologize. I just heard the conversation. He was talking to Homa, who's speaking after us.
Yes.
And he said that they're going to have some kind of website where they're going to have, like, basically you can connect mentors and mentorees, and then connect like that and see what the person does, and you guys can connect. And I don't know too much about it, but if someone in here knows about it, maybe they can stand up and say something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the link that you could just write down. It's tinyurl.com/zmentors. for anyone who's interested in getting a mentorship role, or tinyurl.com/zmentors. Yeah, for any kind of global mentorship you need.
tinyurl.com/zmentors. Thank you.
Just one more request. Mayor, I know that you have a great voice. Would you like to sing a few verses for us, please, today?
Wait, Mayor, get Cyrus to play. Get Cyrus?
Cyrus, do you want to accompany me?
Come on.
I won't put him on the spot. I'll sing like a couple lines.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cante partirò su navi per mari che io lo so, non esistono più, con te io le vivrò. Thank you. Best request, thank you.
That's my sister.
So it was Madeleine Albright who said there was a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. Has any of the panel ever experienced that? And how did they overcome it?
Sorry, can you...
So it was Madeleine Albright who said there was a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. Has the panel ever experienced that? And if they did, how did they combat it?
Like if a woman has not helped me if I asked a question, for example, or
Or
something, or
helped you
needed
in
something.
your career, or,
Career.
could have been anything.
I mean, I can start, and then maybe you can add on.
Thankfully, I have not had that experience, but
I mean, it is definitely something that does exist. It's not like something we can just shove under the rug. I mean, we as women, we all come with a diverse set of emotions. We can be catty to each other. There's definitely times where women don't always help out other women. I think that's really something that is hurtful to our own community of women, but at the same time does exist, unfortunately. I think that's not the case for everyone. And I think it's important to just find people who you can connect with that are like-minded, that share the same values as you, and know that those people do exist. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, it has to happen that way at every company, but hopefully that doesn't happen often.
and also you should just always be helpful because you don't need to be like other people. So if anyone comes out and reaches out and needs help and asks for it, you be the bigger person and you always go out and be the bigger person to help others. So.
Hi, my name's Afriti. So you are leaders and you are constantly meeting people. So when you meet someone, first impressions are pretty important and they're emphasized. So what are some characteristics that you like to showcase and want people to understand about you when you first meet them?
I think for me personally, the most important thing is authenticity. So if I am wanting to start a friendship with someone or if we connect on a certain level, I think it's important to just be really authentic. Even if it's a more work relationship, I still think it's very important to be authentic, but with authenticity, it's very important to be clear about your intentions. The worst thing that I feel like can do is to, and I've had that done to me personally multiple times, which is why it's a pet peeve of mine, is someone kind of interacts with you and acts like they want to maybe be a friend or have a more personal relationship, but ultimately you find out that it was more of something that they wanted from you. And I think that completely severs any kind of relationship, and it just is not personally good. I'm sure you've experienced that as well, so I'll let her continue.
Just one point that I'd want to add, something that you definitely shouldn't be doing, and I'm noticing it a little too much. People bond by bickering over a third thing. So whether it's about a person, about food, about just something, it's the quickest way to start a conversation, but it's not the healthiest, because then in my head, sadly, the first impression is they seem a little fussy. And I like being that easygoing person where you should come across as being someone who's very tolerant. The idea being that if you're tolerant about people's opinions, about ideas, and you're actually willing to engage in something that's a lot more positive. So when you actually meet someone first, and at least for the first time, try as much as you can to refrain from bickering about anything. So that is something that should be like your biggest takeaway. And, you know, yeah, I think.
I love that. And I personally love this question because in my line of work, like everybody's pretty talented at this level now. And my whole thing with my job is like you want to get rehired. So basically you want to be super positive. You want to be somebody that's reliable. You want to be somebody that's on time. You want to be somebody that's positive and enthusiastic and get stuff done. And somebody that you would want to work with and be around, basically. But it's very important in my field of work.
We have one last question. Thanks.
So as someone who's getting into my family business, probably, what are some challenges that you guys faced when transitioning into a managerial role? And what are some things that you did to help make that easier? So I guess it's more directed to Natashah and Pearl.
I personally literally started out as a receptionist. So for me, getting into a managerial role, it just was over the years, and I went to college, so I stopped and I came back. So for me, it was personally more fluid. And I knew everyone. We have team members that have been with us for like 8, 10, 12 years. And so for them, they knew me. And so it kind of just grew into that. But being still part of a family business, it's really important for me again, to be authentic, to really be my true self, and to be very true to them and be honest with them. And also, being in a managerial role, it's important, and I do it every single day. But there's something that goes to say where you can still be your true self, and you don't have to change who you are just because you're in a different role. I'm still extremely collaborative. We work together every day. I do every single job I need to do, regardless of what it is, to make sure that things are running smoothly. So that's my best advice.
Just to add to that, so I'll just give you a 30-second background. We're 3 siblings, and my father's a first-generation entrepreneur. His biggest nightmare, fear is family conflict because of business. We've seen families split up. We've seen people be absolutely disgusting, disrespectful to their parents and grandparents, and that is literally his biggest nightmare. So he's one of those who like cut out articles and like put it on our boards, like, look, you know, like, I don't want this happening. And it starts small. So it starts with like the smallest thing at home where we're like, you know, arguing with each other about something, and he just gets so worked about something that's so, you know, minor. And the idea is that conflict resolution is something you should definitely look into. So at any point in time, you know, if you think you're a hot-headed person, just walk out of the room. So, you know, like, just learn how within your family, find your strong points and weak points and like help each other. You need to be working as one unit. It's only then that unit is going to actually do much to the company. My father is my best friend, literally. So for him and I, our communication is absolutely transparent, and not everybody is kind of in that thing. He is much younger than most people, so I feel like our generation gap isn't too much. That being said, at work, he's very respectful about ideas I have too. So initially, I remember just going like, but you know, this is not okay, like, you know, and then you look into the room and you're like, we're not at home. So how do we do this? You know, you kind of have a decorum, and we're very tolerant, and over meals is when, like, you know, and I used to make notes, like, you know, Dad, you said this at this point. I think we should do this differently, or I didn't like the way you said it, like, could we not do it this way? And he's like, of course. Or he kind of holds back and he'd be like, you know, can we step out? Can we have a chat? And, you know, he's like, this is not the way to do it. I think you're doing it wrong, but it's your team. So he's respectful that he kind of holds me up even within the team. And that's very important for managers. And what happens is that same thing continues to grow. The best part about a family business that you should keep in mind is the business also becomes your family. So people see how you work as one unit, and that also kind of gives off in it. So when you go there, I think that's what you need to keep in mind of how you make everybody also feel inclusive enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. As once again, a round of applause for these amazing lady boss panels. And to felicitate all of them, we want to bring in all our top Ws at CC and all the coordinators here. So can I request Adal, please, to start the felicitation with Natashah Torki. Adal will be presenting the award. And Meher for Pearl Mistry. Can we have Arzan? This one, I'll give it to Arzan as well. Shernaz. Not Shernaz. Oh no. Ketayun. And Ketayun. Can we have a group picture with everyone, please? You want to say something? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, these 5 ladies did a 5-star job. Give them a 5-star as a...
Thank you.